I am interviewing Erin about Commonhaus. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Commonhaus?
Okay, so we launched Commonhaus on Monday, and I'm incredibly excited about it. It's a foundation that I wanted to make something that was much more developer-led, developer-centric, to address concerns that we have with the long-term sustainability of open source projects, which we know is critically important. So here's my joke.
Just the one.
Just the one. Could not have planned the XZ incident better if I tried. I mean, no, it was absolutely not. But it illustrates the problem, right, that we're trying to solve, or at least one aspect of the problem. If you think about it from the social engineering side, where there was a maintainer of a fairly important project in the Linux ecosystem that was basically by himself. And a perfect sucker, perfect victim, right, for social engineering. He's great. There was totally a victim, right? And so part of what I want to do with Commonhaus, with others, it's not me by myself, right? But I'm definitely the prime hamster in the wheel at the moment, is to try to make a community place where we can be together and not isolated. Where the people who create great projects can help ensure that those projects continue in a healthy way without my telling them how to do that, most importantly. I think that's the theme, right?
Right. Exactly. And so I was going to ask you, so we've already had a conversation about this. So I'm going to ask you all the same questions again. I wanted to ask you about the projects in Commonhaus, because I think talking about the projects who are part of the foundation really helps to highlight what it's for and who it benefits and why it's important.
Yeah, so when I started thinking about this, I started talking to Tatu first. He's the maintainer of Jackson. Jackson has never been in a foundation, and I'm not trying to pin any shade here on Tatu, but I know how old I am. And I know ecosystem-wide, likewise, for some of us, some of these libraries that were created, I know my peer group, right? And I know how time is. And I know that time is inevitable and that people are going to want to go do other things with their lives, right? So, okay, Tatu, what is a good organization for you, right? What would actually work for you as a solo maintainer, right? Where's your overhead barrier line, right? How much? And so it's in talking to him, he's like, I really want my project to be Jackson. I want it to remain Jackson. And I don't need people to tell me how to do what I'm doing or to tell me when I can release. I don't need a committee. But he also understands, it's important to start having to mitigate the bus factor,
right?
To say it in the bad way,
yeah,
right? But it's important to start to figure out how do we make this a more robust process, but to do it in a way that's compatible with how this healthy project is already working, right? Rather than trying to say it should be done differently.
Right, and that was what was interesting to me about that. It's I feel like the role of foundations in the olden days, one of the roles was to not only to have the governance and the all the paperwork and stuff, but also to provide things like continuous integration and somewhere to actually put the code and the infrastructure. But these days, that's not as critical, right? Because you've got GitHub and you're using different CI environments, and so it's interesting to hear you say asking a project, what is it you really need? What is the things that do you need all of this stuff, or which bits do you need, and how can we be flexible around
exactly that? So I'll give just random examples, right? As our generation really looks at code of conduct and is like, why? And it's a generational thing, right? I grew up in it, right? Pointy elbows, we all yelled at each other, we went out for beer, that was how it was. And I think we're in a more nuanced time now, where it's you can't do that anymore. Youngsters certainly are not interested in getting yelled at. They don't understand how to navigate it. It's not how they grew up. So when you want to have a code of conduct, how do you do that if it's a solo maintainer? There's nobody to talk to.
Right.
And most of the time, which is when I talk to people about it who are like, why do we need a code of conduct? It's well, most of that actually ends up being mediation. so this person said this and this person said that. What is actually going on? Because of course we also are in this era of neurodivergence and all, like, neurodiversity and trying to accept all of the ways that people are.
Yeah.
Which means that's a lot of what that is mediation and whatever. And that's an example we can augment.
Especially in written communication, because it's much more difficult to understand what someone really meant when it's written down. And so, like, Slack channels are just the best way to misunderstand people, right? And email as well.
Yeah.
So.
But anyway, my point with that is just like that's an easy way where we can provide something in addition that can help a project that doesn't, because they're not going to have one. There's only one maintainer,
and
right?
And they don't want to do that stuff.
Exactly. So it's an augment that we can do, right? That helps the health of the ecosystem as they try to bring more people in.
Yeah.
And it can help navigate that kind of thing. And there's some other things that I'm hoping we get to. I know Justin, as the lead of Morphia, for example, he's starting to look at how, as a collective effort kind of thing, the projects can work together to fix up secure supply chain stuff. How can we get more common tasks to do some of these things that we have to do to start complying with all of the assurances, complying with the compliance stuff. We're really getting redundant here. But the point is like, how can we build together a little bit better? And that's not an exclusive to Commonhaus thing. It's just something I'm hoping we can start to gather.
No, exactly. And from a Gradle point of view, when we heard about Commonhaus, it's kind of interesting to us because we can offer tools like Develocity to groups of open source projects. It's much more difficult for us to offer it to individual open source projects. So we look at the foundations and provide it for them. And so you're providing another home for things like you were saying about compliance and stuff, but also there are organizations who want to offer stuff to open source projects, and you can't go around every project in GitHub and try, do you want it? Do you want it?
And it's also like one of the things I'm hoping we'll be able to do also is accept grants. Right? Because it's easier for us to accept a grant on behalf of a project. It saves them all of the accounting stuff that they would have to set up, right? But then we would still make sure that we're spending the money wisely, transparently, so that the project actually benefits from the grant that they applied for. But it does eliminate a bunch of paperwork steps because we can do that for them.
And so you mentioned Morphia, so I really wanted to talk about Morphia. So I don't know if anyone knows, if they've seen some of my presentations, I use Morphia a whole bunch. I first came across it when I worked at MongoDB. I helped to maintain it a bit when I was there, and then Justin kind of took it over. And I think for me, Morphia is like one of my favorite projects that I don't commit to, but would commit to. It's a good example of what Commonhaus is great for, because it has mostly a single maintainer who spends a bunch of time on it. It's a real project which is used by enterprises all over the place, but it has had a complicated history because it had previous maintainers and it was taken in-house to MongoDB and then taken out of MongoDB. And so, to me, personally, it feels comfortable it's going to find a home in Commonhaus, because it feels like that's somewhere where, okay, we can talk about, planning for if anyone wants to maintain it in the future, and how can we...
So I'm really realistic about how time works.
Right.
I mean, which is hilarious on the face of it, because anybody who knows me knows I have zero concept of time. I just kind of know that it happens. But people's interests ebb and flow, business ebbs and flows. So when you have projects that people rely on, you want the project to stay steady. And one of the things that I'm actually hoping, I'm a big fan of TideLift. I am so excited that TideLift exists. So one of the nice things that I can do is, if I can keep the project itself steady as an entity, TideLift can help pay the maintainers. Right. And if maintainers come and go, and TideLift can help make sure all of them have a living, everybody wins.
Yeah.
That is so great.
I think one of the things that comes through about Commonhaus is that it is an everybody wins kind of thing. You get to play together, you get to work on things together. You don't have to give up anything to be part of that. You just get to be you as a project and you as a maintainer.
That's super important to me. Yeah. That is one of the biggest things to me is people work really hard to create a project, to create an identity, to put it out there into the world. And I feel like the effort required to move it or to make it be something else, it's not effort that's worth it when people are already strapped for time, in my view, right? I just don't feel like if I have to select my time, choose where I'm going to apply my effort, I want it to be things that help move my project forward. I don't want it to be like paperwork and bureaucracy. That's not interesting, which is hilarious on the face of it since I'm making a foundation, which is just funny.
But I think, yes, exactly. You don't want to. The foundation is supposed to help. It's not supposed to add extra burden. And I think when I was looking at the Hibernate being part of the foundation as well, like if a project is working and fundamentally, I'm going to use the term trundling along, but maybe they're not trundling, maybe they're going faster than that. But like if it's working, you don't want to add any extra work to that, but you want to get the benefits of having a foundation without like really, for a successful project, not really forcing anything onto it. But what about projects where maybe they are not as comfortable trundling along?
So one of the things I have, as this has coalesced, right? This has been a fairly rapid process to manifest to this, from like idea to where we are right now, which, to be clear for anyone looking, is still very young. It's still very young. I've realized that I basically signed up for a couple years to be a free coach. That it's a coaching, mentoring exercise, because I do want to help people with those next steps. And in terms of how you set up a culture, you hear people like, how do you establish a culture of an organization? How do you have that conversation? And I want it to be that mentoring kind of culture. How do we help each other grow? How do we make sure that we're not alone as the solo maintainer of a thing that the entire world, like nobody should be in the dark alone with that. That's just, it's not cool. And while I can't say, well, you should never be alone and you need to have a committee, I'm like, no, you don't need that either. But we do need a way to say, okay, I do start needing some help. Like I need some, I want to help people get like their apprentice, you know, like can I get you your Padawan that will help you grow and make it so that it works for both of you and help you into that relationship. Teach people how to be better mentors and better mentees. Is how do we get to be a team thing while we're still all in our own kind of space.
I think, which ties into something we were talking about just before we came on camera, which is like, I love the fact that the focus on collaboration, mentoring, learning, growing together is what really appeals to me about the project, which is the opposite of like competition, which is what we were just talking about. Like, I understand that competition can drive projects to achieve more, but if you're talking about projects that provide a service, there's a maintainer who's kind of doing it on their own time or whatever, like you don't want to stress them out. You want to help them, right?
So I found I've had my time in my past where I would say I was not particularly collaborative, and I learned from that.
Right.
I don't think it's fun weight to carry. I don't think it's very healthy. And I don't think it helps with good outcomes in the end. So I'm kind of over it.
Right.
I'm just over it. And there's a lot of times within the last like 10 years especially, where it's like, yeah, I know this company and that company don't get on very well, but this is a really great library and you should just get over it and use it because you know what? It solves the problem. And it's a great abstraction. And you should just use it. Because really carrying that stuff that happened 20 years ago forward is just why.
Right. And I've been thinking a lot recently about how software is a people problem.
It is a people problem.
It's not a technology problem. And so, and people don't get on with each other and they argue with each other, and I like your focus on bringing people together and getting them to play nicely with each other.
And it is going to be a challenge, right? Like people are complicated and I have no illusions, right, that people are complicated. What I do also know, however, is good coaching can help with that. And being willing to take the time to listen to other perspectives can help with that. And sometimes you need someone who's going to sit on you and be like, no, really, like, calm down and just think about it for a minute. And then it's like, oh, well, yeah. And then you look at the whole situation. How did you contribute to that? Oh, how did they contribute? They had their own thing, right? But so that's, I don't know. I just feel like we can all build better things together. And I wanted to, this was the other thing. Somebody told me it was impossible.
And actually that leads on to my next question. My next question was like, haven't you just made a crap load of work for yourself?
Yes. But what people said is it's really hard, Erin. There's so much work. Like this is just a really hard problem to solve. And we already have these options. Why won't we just use that? This is really hard. And I'm like, but we know that people aren't Like, we know those 2 options or 3 options or 4 options, like, they are great. But we know people, they don't fit everybody. And that's why, like, I try to explain to people, like, I am stealing 0 projects from other foundations.
Right.
Because I'm addressing the projects that were already in the never camps for whatever reason of their own choosing. They were very firmly in the never camps. So I'm building something for them, right, to address those needs. And it's like, okay, are we afraid of work now?
Right.
If it's worth it, let's do it. It's not that hard. There's so much precedent across all of, like, if you look holistically across the whole industry, not just like within our usual niche of the, within our little corner. It's like we have so many different kinds of foundations and different kinds of organizations. There is precedent everywhere. These are solvable problems.
So I like that comment. Like, are we afraid of hard work? No, we didn't get to where we are by not doing work.
By not doing work.
Right? And if it's worth doing, it's worth doing properly.
Yeah. The hardest part that I'm finding, like, there is a lot of general angst in it. Like, since the XZ thing, if you just go and look at pick a social platform and watch the mood, there's a lot of anti-vendor sentiment. There's a lot of it's all because the companies won't support the open source stuff and they won't pay the blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, so we can either wait for that problem to be fixed, which, like, it's not going to magically fix itself. There's no magic button that's going to make this system fix itself. That's not how it's going to work, which means you have to break it.
Right.
I want to build a different hamster wheel. Thank you very much. I am happy to run in it for a while. But I need other hamsters to come join me. I don't know why I'm picking hamsters as an analogy. I don't know where it came from. But like, I'm happy to drive the wheel, but I need other people to help drive the wheel. And it's like, if you don't want the big money bags to join the wheel, guess what, kids? We gotta do it then.
You've got to do it as well. Yeah, exactly. And that's good, because I actually want to, I want us to wrap up maybe soon, but like, what would be really great is like a call to action. Like, what do you want from people?
So like, we have our webpage. There's we have GitHub sponsors. If you go and push the button. Oh, our membership dues. I have membership dues.
Right.
It's $8 a year.
Okay.
So the way I would say it is like, it accidentally rhymes. It's like, buy the foundation a beer like once a year.
Oh, nice.
Or a pizza or fancy coffee. Pick your range. But I want it to be super low. Like, I don't want this to be like expensive or even something you have to really think about, right? Like, if I was going to come sit with you at the bar, would you buy me a beer? Okay, yeah, but don't buy it for me, buy it for the foundation, right? And if I do that with enough people, we can cover all of our basic expenses pretty easily. If I get lots of people, then we can start doing things like sending all the maintainers, like if Tattoo gets some peers to start working on Jackson, maybe we can get all of them here at DevNexus so they can meet together and work on Jackson. Like, that would be amazing. But odds are we could also collaborate with Jugs or other things to also make that to happen. There's lots of routes, lots of avenues to success. But anyway, call to action is join, or like push the sponsor button. I am looking for humans to be members. And I did see a comment out in the social sphere, like, it's a 501c6, why do we need another vendor organization? It's like, okay, 501c6, for people who don't know US law, is a trade group, but trade groups can also be member organizations. And that's really where I'm at. Like, I want this to be a member organization, but that means I need members. Right? So, and I don't want a huge time commitment. I personally also hate meetings. And I hate bureaucracy, so that's not really my jam. But I do want to get to the place, like, if you sponsor, you can come into a Discord, and so we can like start talking to each other and organizing things together and supporting each other. But the big reason I need members is I want to have elections. My board is an elected board, rather than a bunch of suits, which I had somebody else say, oh, but it's a Johnson. Oh, I had somebody be like, what, you don't want somebody like me on your board. I'm like, yeah, you want to do it? Run. Absolutely, I want you on my board. It's a council instead of a board. I'm really trying to get away from the executive feel here, because I want it to be about us and the stuff we build.
And people.
But that means I need people to vote.
Right. Okay. So you need people to push the sponsor button.
Push the button.
You need members and people and support, right?
That's right.
And people saying nice things about you. Presumably.
Not about me.
No,
I'm
about
okay if it's
the
not about me.
organization.
But about the organization, yes. And
Okay.
I would love people to. I have to say, this week has been amazing.
Yeah?
It has been amazing.
Have you met a lot of people on the stand?
A lot of people on the stand, and we've had people on Twitter, and it's just been really, really good. A lot of really positive feedback. I think it is something people, here's the thing, people like the idea.
Right.
Show me.
Right.
Push the button.
Yes.
Let's make it actually happen.
It's one thing to say, oh, it's a great idea. Just push the button. Push. So you're getting interest from individuals who are kind of think it's a cool idea. Are you getting interest from projects who might want to join?
Yes, we have SDK Man.
Oh, nice.
So there's a place in our GitHub repo for just like I'm driving everything through discussions. I don't like manual labor. I'm fundamentally lazy. I totally have everything automated. So absolutely driving everything. We're just driving everything through GitHub discussions. But I have a place for joining Commonhaus where people can raise a discussion, say my project is interested. Again, we're super young.
Right.
So I don't have the whole project application process completely netted out yet. The existing projects and I will be going through that over the next couple weeks to net that all out. Because again, it is project and developer driven. All the way.
Cool. Anything else you want to end on?
Just
push the button.
Everybody, yeah, push the button. That's really it. Push the button. Buy me a beer. Buy us a beer. Buy us.
We're not going to stop you. There is no one
collectively.
Else go for it.
Just say push the button 300 times.
300 times.
Push the button.
No, but that is, it's like, it is the hardest thing. I feel like I'm the new NPR of, the new public radio of developer stuff is, yes, please push the button. But that's the difference. You got to actually do it. Not just, don't just tell me you love it, show me.
But this is what I like about it. I like the fact that you saw a niche that needs to be filled, and instead of just moaning about it, you're like, I'm going to do that.
I'm going to do it.
I really like the person who told you it was impossible, because otherwise you wouldn't have done it.
I needed it was like, oh, that's a gauntlet right there. We're throwing it now. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
And I do actually, Mark Little at Red Hat is amazing because he saw the fire get lit.
Right.
Go. It's like amazing.
Yeah.
To be able to just oh no, really? You mean it? I can do this? Like, awesome. I mean,
like, oh no, I didn't mean it. I don't want to do it.
no. He saw the fire get lit, and he's like, yeah, do it, and that's
what you want from leadership and mentors and sponsors. Go ahead,
100%.
do it. We're going to help
100%. And this is, we had the Women in Technology breakfast yesterday, right?
Yes, which I enjoyed a lot actually.
Yeah, and stretching is important, right? Like career growth. I have no clue what I'm doing, which is not entirely true, right? I can figure it out. I'm learning.
But it's the thing about that. Oh, do you want all the tick boxes ticked, or you want 50% of the tick boxes? I can do that.
I can do it. I can learn, and it's stuff I haven't done before. But again, there's precedent, so it's not like nobody has done this, right? So it's a matter of how do I learn and organize and pull people together and bring in the skills that I don't have. I have no pretenses that I know all the things, right? Like I don't. But I do know how to bring in the people that do. So that's the other, we have had a couple companies ask how to sponsor. Okay. And a couple of them come up and they're like, yeah, but we're not big, we don't write big checks.
Right.
You don't want to know something? Little checks are fine.
$8, it's fine.
It's great, exactly. Well, but this is, I think, where some people are a little jaded about foundations, is because some of them are like, only the big checks can play.
I had a conversation with one of the foundations about how the company I was working for at the time could help that foundation. And they were like, until you write the check, you can't help us. It's like, but we can do blog posts and we can collaborate together and we can get the word out there. They're like, no, that's the thing you want.
I mean, I have to be fair, and one of the things I want to make sure that we are always transparent with how we use money. So like, part of the membership fee that we have, it's just the hurdle, are you actually interested? Are you going to talk? Are you going to do? right? So it's just the jump, right? Like help us build it.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually necessarily sign you up to do anything other than like automated push a React emoji on the GitHub issue, right? I'm trying to roll low friction here. I'm trying not to burden anybody with stuff. But I'm okay with trade in lieu of. Right? I don't necessarily need money if you have expertise that's really awesome.
Right.
Like, help me build it. I'm great. Like, that's what we want. In terms of actually needing money, though, there are things that we do have to pay for, right? Like, we want to be able to own trademarks.
Right.
And this is, right, young foundation, I know we need to own trademarks. One of the things I have to figure out quite soon is how we're going to make sure we have the money to pay for that.
Right.
And that's where bigger checks help. But enough little checks also help.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like it's a one or the other kind of game.
Cool. I've got no more questions. Everyone should press the button and sign up.
Press the button. That's all I need.
Cool. Great. Well, thank you very much for coming to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for doing what you did. It's just a fantastic idea.
This has been an amazing... Oh, I should say also, because I have not been good at saying that, DevNexus was amazing to have it here. They helped me put together a booth.
Right.
I got a gift of a really pretty tablecloth that has our logo on it, and it is so special.
And it makes you feel like a real thing, right? You have a physical thing which says that we're a thing.
Like, it was like, this is real. Holy macaroni.
Was it good or terrifying?
Yes. Yes. All the things. But it's such a gift, and it's so special.
And it's a nice way to launch and just feel like I did start something, and people are interested and they want to help.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice thing to end on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.